record. All right, guys. So today we're gonna dive into my listing appointment framework and essentially the way that we use it. It's a little bit different than a lot of ways that other real estate leads or coaches will teach. And you're gonna see exactly why, right? Because this is more so relationship focused, and it allows us to establish rapport with the prospect, and as well as give them all the information and data that they need to make sure that we're getting the buy-in to list at the right price, because we all know overlisting a property can be very detrimental to the overall relationship, as well as the transaction and if we do end up overlisting, it can ultimately lead to us getting fired. And if we're getting fired, it means we're losing money, and that's not what we're in business to do. Okay. So diving in here. Okay. So again, so before I head out onto a listing presentation, we do want to prepare with a CMA. So for us, we use an application called Cloud CMA. I'm not sure what application you guys use, but it's really cool because it allows us to take all the MLS listings. It summarizes all of them in a nice presentable report with all the different photos, the cost per square footage, and all the other data to help support whatever recommended price that you ultimately come to a conclusion to. Okay, so for me, I like to run an analysis on 2 to 3 actives, 2 to 3 pendings, and 2 to 3 solds within 30 to 60 days. And that really allows us to give enough options that will be above our recommended price and below our recommended price to come to an agreement with the prospect on what our recommended listing price is. Okay. And in like if you guys haven't yet or you're not using it, I would definitely recommend looking into Cloud CMA. Great tool, and it really does a good job putting together all the information, as well as any supplemental marketing material on your brand, and your unique selling proposition to provide them in the listing presentation. Okay. So in regards to the listing presentation itself, this method has really served me well because it's very relationship focused. It gives us the opportunity to develop the trust and relationship with the prospect, even if they are cold prospects, right? So a lot of agents will come with a folder or a lot of resource materials, but won't give all of the supporting information, to not just give context on why we're listing at that price and strategy behind it, but why someone should choose to list with you opposed to other agents in their market. So the frame of this listing presentation, again, it's about building a relationship and trust and educating the sellers through self-discovery. Okay. And in terms of how to prepare, make sure that you bring a charged laptop, because we are going to be using it over the course of the CMA. And make sure that you run an in-depth CMA, understand that the market stats. You will likely get questions regarding other listings that have sold up and down the street. So I like to keep up to date on those. And then also come with a gift. Use, like most people, I'll do like a bottle of wine, or if they don't drink wine for like religious purposes, like I'll bring some food that's kind of in alignment with their culture, but leave it in the car, and I'm going to explain exactly why. Okay. So when we arrive, and we come to the home, we want to bring a big smile and positive energy. Leave the bag at the door, because it is going to kind of signal that like you don't want to dive into business right away. And we want to get into what we call coffee worthy, right? And we want to start the conversation and really go into anything that's exclusive of the home itself and the real estate market. Okay. So this can be going into sports, hobbies, any recent events, politics, and their history of the home, like how they moved there, how they decided, stuff like that. And the idea here is to establish that relationship, but really get them as comfortable as possible, right? Because again, people want to do business with people that are similar like them. And if we skip this step, especially if they're a colder prospect, that they're like an online lead, or they just like that relationship has been developed, we have to spend more time on this initially, okay? And do not rush into the actual listing presentation itself until you start getting the emotional cues, which is when people start to like lean back in their chair, they kind of open up, or they even suggest getting right into it, right? Sometimes you'll come across people that are really cutthroat and dry, and sometimes they just want to get right down to business. In that case, you can kind of dive in. But with most people, again, make sure do not skip the rapport building phase, because it will help you in the ultimate conversion of the listing, getting the agreement signed. Okay. If they do offer like a drink or food, always accept it. Like if they offer you a coffee, even if you've had like 10 coffees that day, make sure that you accept it, because we never want to turn people down for just being nice, right? And it's also a subconscious signal that will help them feel more comfortable with you. So you always want to encourage their kindness. So if they are giving you a drink, food, gift, whatever it is, just accept it. So from there, okay, we want to dive into our first property tour. And we're going to do two different property tours. I'm going to explain why, okay? The first property tour, it's really relationship focused, and we want to focus on really making the prospect feel good about their house, okay? So essentially we just say, okay, hey, walk me through and sell the house to me, okay? And most homeowners I've found, like, especially if they've lived there for a long time or they've invested a lot of time and energy, like into the property, into renovations, they're going to be super excited about it. And we want to feed into that energy. That's the easiest way to build rapport with them. Okay. So like if they point out like they spent a lot of money on renovating the kitchen, you want to tell them how amazing the kitchen looks and how well it would do on the market, and just continue complimenting them as you're walking through. And as you're doing that, you want to be taking any mental notes on marketing aspects that you can provide in your realtor remarks. And then you can also start taking mental notes about anything that will need to be recommended in order to prepare the house for for getting it up on the market, right? But we don't want to point this out right away. So any recommendations for like staging, touch-ups, or repairs, we don't want to do this in the first walkthrough. We'll do that in the second walkthrough. Again, this tour is strictly about building the relationship and just complimenting them and making them feel good. And it just adds to the likelihood of them choosing you as their listing agent. Okay. Any questions so far, guys? Naveen, Kazel, Ashley, Elijah?
No questions.
No questions? Perfect. Okay, we'll keep running through here. Okay, so now in terms of the CMA, once the first walkthrough is complete, hand them the printed CMA that we did earlier that day, but tell them to put it aside, because we don't want to focus on the printed element. We want to really build the CMA in front of them and explain to them and walk them through why we got to why we choose the listings we did, why we set up the search the way that we did, as well as we want to ground the price and get in alignment on the price once we're all done. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll log into the MLS. We'll start building the CMA in front of them on the computer from scratch. Okay. So again, like I mentioned, we want to pick out two to three actives, 2 to 3 pendings, and 2 to 3 solds. And then outline why you're selecting each of the criteria that you're working with, right? So start with the size. That is like similar to their house, plus or minus 100 square feet, same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and then bring up different options of the active pendings and solds within the first 30 days. If there aren't enough comparables, we have to expand our search a little bit. So you can either do that by expanding the time frame where the recently solds are, so you can go from 30 days up to 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, up to 6 months. And then adjust the size of the house by 50 square foot increments until you get about 7 to 9 comparables. Okay. And it's critical to ensure that we're using the same product of the house that they are currently looking to list. So if they have a condo, we don't want to be looking at townhomes. If they have a single family house, we don't want to be looking at condos, and vice versa. And I know that goes without saying. So once we have a list of 7 to 9, okay, we want to organize it from lowest to highest, okay, and really just start walking through the photos of each of the comparables, because that is going to allow them to see and put themselves in the eye of the buyer, okay? And as we're working through it and we're going through each of the features, we're going through the bedroom, we're going through the kitchen, we're going through the living room, we want to compare it to their house while asking them, okay, if you were a buyer and you were looking between this listing that we're reviewing right now and your home to purchase, would you pay more or less for your home? Okay. And this is really, really important to continuously ask throughout the course of the listing presentation, because it's going to help anchor the price, the suggested price that we're going to come up with. Okay. And without doing this, if we skip this part, we are likely, and I've run into it multiple times, you ultimately end up dealing with a heavy objection of a client that wants to list above asking, which can be a really, or above market value, sorry, which can be a tough objection to overcome. And we all know that listing over market can be really detrimental for the course of the relationship. Okay. So after we've reviewed all of the photos and the comparables, we want to ask the client, based on all of these that we've went through and what a lot of these comparables have sold for, what they're actively listed for, and how they compare to your house, what would you list your home at if you were to give us a range? And let them give you a range. And if it's within the exact same range that you recommended on the CMA, you can pull out the CMA and show them, okay, exactly, this is exactly what I would recommend is the fair market value of your property. Okay. If the seller suggests a higher price, which can still happen, right? Especially if they've lived there a long time, they're going to think that their house is worth more than it is. We still want to use the you're okay, I'm okay strategy and go through more lower price comparables again and try to anchor what the market is valuing the house to them. Okay. So from there, now we've gotten the buy-in and we're in alignment of what the market is valuing their house at, as well as what you are suggesting to list it at. Okay. Now from here, we want to run through the 3 listing strategies. Okay. Does anyone know the 3 listing strategies? Elijah, Cassell, Ashley?
No, sir.
All right, perfect. Okay. So when listing a house, you can go under market value, you can go at market value or over market value. Okay. For most markets and most products, it is most advantageous for us as realtors to list the property under market value. Okay. And the reason is it allows us to bring in more viewings, more showings, which is going to lead to more offers and ultimately drive the price up, especially if we're in a market where it's very very seller driven. Okay, where there's a shortage of inventory and lots of buyers. And the way that we explain it to a client is it essentially acts as a slingshot effect. Okay. So you list, 5 to 10% lower than our average market price or the fair market value that we've expressed to the client. And we do that to bring in as many offers and ultimately drive them against each other to drive the price up. Okay. So in terms of when we use this strategy, we want to use this the majority of the time, and it does work in most markets and most scenarios for lower, middle, and high-priced houses in both hot and cold markets. It's just in colder markets, you're likely going to, you're not going to get as much competition, but you're still going to be in a better position than if you were to list above market. And it's funny, Ryan Serhant, he actually posted a reel about this yesterday. If you guys have Ryan Serhant on social media, definitely check it out after this call. And if you don't, definitely give him a follow. Such a high caliber real estate agent, but he essentially stated he had a 6.5 million, or he had a listing that was listed at 6.5, but he only had like one or two people come through over the last couple of months. And he explained to his client, like, we're not getting anyone through. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Let's list it at $3 million and just see what happens, right? We don't have to accept $3 million, but we just want to see and inspire some buyers to come through and see if we can get an offer on the place. Okay. How many people do you think came through the listing when they dropped it from 6.5 to $3 million?
Quite a
Any,
bit for sure.
what's that?
Quite a bit for sure. That's a
Yeah.
big price reduction.
It is. It is. 100, he said over 100 people came through over the course of a weekend. Guess how much they ended up getting, they ended up getting it sold for?
6.8. Oh, 6.8.
Close. They got $6 million for it. So
Oh, good for them.
$500,000 less than, what the seller was hoping for, but they at least got a bunch of movement throughout the house. So they got 100 viewings, right? Which is crazy, right? At the point, they had only had 1 to 2 over the course of a couple of months. Okay. So we can use this in our listings, albeit to a lower scale, because again, the market values the property, not the client, right? And the way that I like explaining this to clients is, okay, if you're a buyer and you're looking at 5 to 10 similar listings in this area, maybe a community or two over, and you want to take a look, same comparables, again, we're assuming same beds, baths, same square footage, stuff like that. And you see a property that is, the market is valuing it at 600,000, but you see yours listed at 650. Okay. Which one are you going to want to go take a look at? Are you going to want to take a look at the one that appears to be a better deal? Or do you want to take a look at the one that appears to be overpriced? Right. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say we'll probably take a look at the ones that will appear to be a better deal. Okay. So if we get more people to take a look at the listings that appear to be a better deal, and we've agreed that getting more viewings results in more offers, and more offers leads to a higher price point, what you're telling me is that if we list at this price, this will ultimately help us get the most for your property. Okay. And it's really, really important to explain this concept to the clients, especially if they are wanting to list at the price that is higher than what you initially value the property at. Okay. So the second listing strategy is listing at the fair market value. Okay. And this can still work. Very similar to listing under market value. It'll still work. We just have to make sure that we set the expectations with the client that it will likely, like, we won't see as much movement on it initially. We may get like the kind of close to the price, if not a little bit under. And buyers aren't going to be flocking to the property because they're going to be deterred by the higher price, especially if there's other comparables that are nearby that are listed on the MLS for a lower price. Okay. So yeah, the only time we really don't want to use this strategy is when the market is declining. We end up running into a situation where like people are just going to be chasing the better deal. But again, make sure it's communicated to the client on what to expect, and it'll just lead to easier conversations down the line. And one thing that I like to do is just get the buy-in that if you don't see the viewings or the showings that we are initially looking for in the first weekend or the first 10 days, that we will start dropping the price towards the under market value that you initially suggested. Okay. And then the third strategy is listing over market price. And again, it's never a good idea to overlist a property for most products. Okay. So I'm talking like condos, single family houses, and townhouses. However, you can use it with more luxury type home spaces where you're dealing with a very specific type of buyer with larger motivations. But in most cases, guys, listing under market value is going to serve you better. It's going to ultimately have, not always, but most of the time, have a better outcome for your sellers and increase competition to help drive the price up, which is a better scenario for you as the realtor, and it's a better scenario for the client as a seller. Okay. Then from the initial 3 listing strategies, and we've gotten their buy-in to list under the suggested market value, or at the maximum list at the fair market value, we want to go into our listing business plan, because again, we're in the business of business, and we want to get more deals and more listings as a result of this listing. And this is exactly how we can turn our 1 listing into 2, 3, 4, 5 additional deals. Okay. So the first is going to come from hosting an open house and supplementing it with knocking the doors around the area and letting them know that you have a listing that's coming live and you just want them to come through the property. We want to advertise the listing on social media. So using Facebook Marketplace, using Facebook ads, Kijiji, Craigslist, and try to bring in as much exposure to the listing as possible. And if you guys haven't yet, we have our whole Facebook Marketplace training in the course area. Again, the listing, your listing that you're putting up, you're not trying to bring people in through social media into the listing. You're just trying to get them to reach out and further qualify them as a buyer or as someone that is potentially looking to list. Okay. And if they come through, it's 99% of the time this isn't going to happen, but for there is a possibility that they actually come through, they see your ad on social media, they come to the open house, or they view the listing, and it gives you the opportunity to double in the deal. Albeit that's the majority of the cases, that is not going to happen all of the time. Okay. You want to put it up on social media because people are going to reach out and inquire on that listing, but then you use that reach out to establish more rapport, to further qualify them, and ultimately help them find another property, whether they're looking to buy or list. Okay. We have our boomerang strategy where we post it on our social media and ask our following, just kind of like we do with the Blitz, but ask our following to share it on their story, which is going to get it more exposure and have more people reaching out. Again, guys, we have all of these strategies in the course area. So please, if you do ultimately get a listing, reach out to us and we'll go through all of this in more detail. But in full, you want to host the open house over the first weekend. Okay. You want to get it up on social media. You want to get it up on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And then if you do have a Google My Business, you can post a product for sale. You only have 1 picture to post, but it will help it gain more exposure. And then most importantly, the sold sign as well, guys. You will get people reaching out, and it is another way of getting exposure to have people ultimately, reach out and maybe get an additional listing from someone else that's just down the street. Okay. So now we've gone through the CMA, we've gone through the listing strategies, we've gone through our marketing plan. Okay. Now we want to do by then we should have them 99% of the way there. We now want to do a second walkthrough of the property. And this is where we go through and we get the buy-in. Okay, like this is what we need to do to get it prepared. And this is what we need in order for us to get to make it most appealing to buyers so we get the best price for them. Okay. So from there, we'll take all of the mental notes that we took from the initial property walkthrough. We'll start pointing to different areas of touch-ups and make recommendations like painting, decluttering, and staging if that's in the budget. And this should take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And don't beat around the bush with this, guys. Like if there's something that without a shadow of a doubt will have an effect on the sale, make sure you're direct and express what could possibly happen if it's not addressed correctly. Okay. So from here, we go back to our marketing strategy, our pricing strategy, and emphasize that we're going to have the home sold in a short period of time if all of this is done correctly. And if they agree to that, we ask them, if they would be opposed to getting bins and boxes to start pre-packing some of the items that kind of clutter the place, and make it most presentable for buyers to come through. Okay. And then from there, once the listing agreement is signed, we execute on all of this. We list it at the price that we agreed on. We get the listing agreement signed, and we use the marketing strategies to get as much exposure as possible, but also to help generate as many more leads as possible, and ultimately get their home sold. Okay, so that is our listing appointment framework in its entirety. It has served us very, very well, not just to get listing agreements signed, but to establish great relationships with our clients and to maximize the listings that we do get. But I'm going to open up the floor quickly here for 5 minutes, and then we will take off for the day. So Elijah, what are your biggest takeaways from our listing presentation?
I kid you not. The whole presentation was resourceful because I have a potential listing coming up. They're in the process of remodeling to the point I actually started taking notes. Oh, you can't see them, but I started taking
Awesome.
notes. So this whole meeting today was very resourceful for me.
Love it, man. Let me know in Slack when the meeting is coming up, so you're best prepared going into that listing presentation. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Ashley, what are your biggest takeaways? Mike is not functional. Uh-oh. Okay, type your 3 takeaways in the chat. Kizelle, what are your 3 biggest takeaways?
I would say the first one is probably like the coffee worthy combo. I feel like that's something that's really easy to skip over. It's just like a lot of people don't think of.
Yeah.
And then I guess kind of going along with that, gaining emotional security with the client is a
Yeah.
big one. And then the 3 listing strategy.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Ashley, you got yours? You type in yours? I see you're typing away there. Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. So we will be updating our modules, biggest takeaways under market value, because it works very well. Yeah, exactly. 100%. And the way that we get them to agree to listing under market is by showing them and walking them through the photos, photo for photo, step by step of each comparable listing on the MLS in front of them. And then especially if they're really, really stuck on the price and they, you know, they think their house is valued a lot more than it is. We have to have the supporting documentation and data to help express and walk them through why it makes the most sense and why the market is pricing it where we are recommending. So 100%, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Well, thanks again for hopping in, guys. Hope you guys got some value from the call here today. We will be back here same time, same place for our systems call tomorrow. Thanks for hopping in, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.